Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Loose Wheels, the auto racing podcast of centralmaine.com. I am your host, Travis Barrett. I am the auto racing writer at the Kennebec Journal and the Morning Sentinel. We're happy to have you along. I think I don't have to tell you, if you've listened this far into the podcast, all 20 seconds in, you know it's Oxford 250 week. And today we spent some time over at the annual Oxford 250 Media Day, and we caught up with a few people. I think everybody I lied. We talked to three winners of the Oxford 250, and we talked to another driver who, has a great family involvement this year with Clark Scrap Metals coming on as a title sponsor. We talked to Johnny Clark. We talked to him early in the year. I think it's the one race that's kind of really missing from his resume. I think he would admit that, and he's pretty candid about the fact that he would really like to win this race. We'll talk to him a little bit later, but some notes of interest, I think, as we kind of start setting our sights here on the weekend. Tom Mayberry, who owns Oxford Plains Speedway and is also the president of the Pro All-Star Series, noted that advanced ticket sales for this race right now are already ahead of the ticket sales for the Oxford 250 a year ago through Saturday's race last year. So through Saturday last year, so we're 4 days shy of that, 3 days shy of that. I wasn't very good at math, but we're shy of that already, and we're already ahead of ticket sales for this year's race. Also, he noted that there are 70 more campers already on the property this week than there were at the exact same time a year ago. So interest in the race is really high, and I feel like the common theme today over there at Media Day was the competition level. And one of the guys that we're going to talk to is a little bit later is Travis Benjamin, and he talked about, he won this race in 2013 and 2014. Back-to-back years. So you're going back 5 years, and he said that already the competition level has changed, and I think that's really impressive. I really feel like while the hot story is on Kurt Gary and his record 5 straight wins at Oxford Plains Speedway in past competition, and also Cassius Clark and Reed Lamfer, who have been really, really good there. And they seem to be kind of like, if you were to put together a list of favorites, those would be the guys probably. But I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure that I'm buying into that. I think it's really deep. I think there's a lot of guys that can win this race, and I'm not quite ready to make a prediction just yet. But I think if I had to stick my neck out in any way, I would say I think we're going to be surprised. I think Sunday night we're going to get a surprise winner. That's kind of my gut feeling. I think we're going to get somebody that either we never saw coming or that is winning the race for the first time. But you know what? I don't want to talk about that just yet. What I want you to do is centralmaine.com/sports, Oxford 250 coverage all week. If you click on the little auto racing tab, it'll take you to all the coverage from the Oxford 250 this week. Also, we're on Facebook, Central Maine Sports, and at Central ME Sports on Twitter. Please check that out, and you can get me on Twitter at TBarrettGWC. You're going to be there all weekend from the first minute the first cars hit the track for practice on Friday. We're going to be there. So really looking forward to it, as I always do. It's one of my favorite events to cover. In fact, I would say that back in the day when the what's now the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series would come to Loudon, 15 years ago, that was a big deal. That was a huge weekend, but I still always enjoyed covering the Oxford 250. It's always been my favorite auto race to cover. I think there's great stories leading into it. I think there's always great stories coming out of it. And like I said before, I think we're not going to lack for those again this year. I guess that's how I would say it. So, but I want to get into this, and I've been dying to have this guy on the podcast. But by his own admission, he doesn't love doing media stuff. I think he gets a little gun shy, but I thought he was great, and I'm happy to share him with you here. So here we are on Loose Wheels as we get headed to the Oxford 250. Who better to kick off this podcast than the defending champion of the Oxford 250, Curtis Gary of Waterboro. I remember when Travis first won the 250, he said he had no idea how much attention he was going to get out of that. Has it surprised you how much attention you get?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of see it when it was happening to everybody else, but it doesn't bother you as much, you know what I mean? But yeah, it is amazing how much attention and people want to talk to you and video and see you and talk to you, you know?
Yeah.
But it's not my favorite thing to do, but, you know, it's part of the deal. You have to do it.
Yeah. Did you, at what point, no driver in the history of PASS has ever won 5 straight races at a track. And, you know, everybody's kind of jokes about the fact that you kind of came out of nowhere.
Right.
At what point did you feel like not only I can be competitive with all these guys, but I can win these races?
Back when we bought the new car in 2016, you know, we were running Beach Ridge. We won the championship that year, but we started running PASS races at Beach Ridge. And then we started, you know, a couple of second place in it. Then we kept changing our setup a little bit, and then we won our first one. We came to Oxford one, and then it was just the setup was right on, and it happened right down the line. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And now it's been like 6 in a row since the last 250.
Right. But, I mean, you're so humble and soft-spoken. Is there any part of you deep down inside that kind of secretly loves the extra attention that all these guys are paying to you?
Not really. I love the success.
Yeah.
You know, obviously every driver's dream is to win that kind of races, but no, I don't like the attention. I really don't. I'd rather crawl in a hole somewhere.
Right. Not yet.
No.
Did you, before last year, like going into that race, were you still of the mindset that you would be happy just to qualify and be in that race, or had you shown up last year like, you know, we're here to compete and try to win?
Honestly, I don't know. I didn't really have any expectations. You know, we practiced the car. The car was fast. We were top of the charts with everybody else, and we already had a good finish. You know, coming into that race, and I don't know. I really, honestly, didn't myself expect to win, but there I was. I remember in the race taking the lead, and I'm like, wow, I can't even believe it. I'm leading the Oxford 250. You know, and it just happened, but it was definitely awesome.
Right. But I feel like every driver in this race, they go through a period where when they're young, they just want to be in it.
Right.
And then, you know, like all these guys in this room want to compete for it.
Oh, and no, there's times when you go there, I'm going to be happy if I just qualify and make it into the show. And I've been there. You know, I probably run maybe 6 of these, 7 at most, you know. And been times where I just want to make it in.
Yeah.
You know, and... But yeah, I mean, last year we knew we'd make it in. We were pretty confident of that because, I mean, we had a great car, a fast car, so we knew if everything lined up, you know, we had a shot of winning. But pull it off is another story.
Yeah, I know you talked before about kind of the responsibility and the pressure of being the guy. But you know, after the 150, you know, I asked Reed, have you guys gotten to a point where he's like, it's completely changed everybody's strategy. Everybody wonders about the 7G.
Right.
If 15 years ago, what would 15 years ago Kurt Gary have said to that? Would you have been in awe of the fact that people would worry about what you're doing?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, 15 years ago, I had older cars, you know, we struggled. You know, I'd maybe pull off a win here and there, but like I said, the last 2 years I've won more races than I probably have in the last 10, you know, prior to that. So it's definitely a cool feeling to have everybody looking up to us and our team and the car, and on the radio wondering where I am on the track and what I'm doing, and you know, it's humbling.
Yeah. You don't strike me as somebody that gets nervous. Like, you don't strike me as you're nervous and worried about this weekend.
I do, but I hide it well.
Okay, so in order to win a second one, what has to happen for you? What would be the perfect game plan for you for the weekend?
A good draw would be a huge start, and then just a clean race. Really, I really think if we have a clean race and no incidents, I honestly think we'll be there in the end. You know, it's not me. Our car has shown it over and over again that it's always there in the end. You know, unless something happens, but I think it's just a steady pace, and I think we'll be there at the end.
Yep. Thanks again to Kurt for doing that. You know, we talked about it a little bit after we were done recording. You know, he said he's gotten a little more comfortable doing media. But yeah, you know, the other thing you have to remember about Kurt is, you know, he came, it's not a stretch to say he came out of nowhere. nobody expected him to win that race last year. He wasn't on a list of anybody's favorites, even as good as he'd been at Beech Ridge. And I'll be honest, I think people who said, oh, no, I told you I thought he'd be fast and be in contention, I think that you are you're guilty of a little bit, perhaps, of revisionist history there, because I think it's one thing to be fast in these races. It's another thing to be capable of beating those teams in a 250-lap race, which includes a live pit stop with a team that's basically a father and son team that, works with, their weekly guys at Beech Ridge. They're not even Oxford weekly guys. But anyway, thanks to Kurt for doing it. I'm happy to have him on. And I think, one of our guests a little bit later, we talked to Travis Benjamin, again, 2-time winner of the Oxford 250, and even he said it's hard for guys not to like Kurt. He's a good guy. It's a nice team, good people. They don't ruffle any feathers. They don't beat and bang. So anyway, I really think that he's popular. People like it. But okay, so look, let's keep rolling here. Oxford 250 Media Day, and this next guest, I saw him win again over at Oxford Plains Speedway on Saturday night. Again, it was a light field, but still it counts. 152 career wins and counting for Mike Rowe at Oxford Plains Speedway. He is a 3-time winner of the Oxford 250. He's won it in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. And if he wins this weekend, it will be the 4th decade he's won an Oxford 250 in, and he will be the first 4-time winner of the Oxford 250. So here is the king of Oxford, Mike Rowe of Turner, Maine.
Very generic question. What does it mean to you? What does the Oxford 250 mean to you and your family?
That means a lot, because we won this 3 times. If we could win it 4 times, I tell you, that would top my career right there.
Yeah.
Especially when they keep mentioning my age. So no, this is just awesome to have a race like this. With Mayberry putting it on, and Johnny Clark with the Clark books, and you got to have people like that to help you out, and it's nice that they're doing that.
Do you remember the first time you ever raced on this track?
Yeah, it was back in 1968.
Yeah.
I went out there in a heat race, and I got lapped the first thing, and I thought I was flying. But otherwise than that, it's been a long time.
When you started out, of course, there was no Oxford 250 then, but would you ever have imagined that your career would be where it is now?
No, not really.
Yeah.
It's just awesome that we've done so good that we have, and I got a lot of people over the years to thank for that, and it takes more than a driver to just win a race. You've got to have a good crew and a good car, and fortunately I've had a lot of wins here, and I've had that between the crews, so just fortunate.
Do you have a favorite Oxford 250 win?
I've got 3 of them. I think when I beat Johnny Clark and Steve Perry's car there with 10 to go, we caught him running down. I mean, that was probably the biggest one. But yet, back in '84, we was the only V6 car in the field, and we beat all them V8s. But they ran out of tires, and I was 200 pounds lighter than them, which helped us. So, they're all great. This one here would really be nice if we could win this one.
Yeah. And so I know you've talked before about the car and what it would take, but do you envision? I mean, I'm assuming you wouldn't be here if you didn't think you could be competitive on Sunday. So what is it going to take for you guys to take kind of that next step and win on Sunday?
Well, I mean, we come up here and tested the last couple of weeks, and it was decent. We end up winning Saturday night. But we've got to get, I feel, a little bit better. And we're getting closer, to beat Curtis Gary, Cassius Clark, or Reed Lampfield. We've got to get just a little bit better. And if we can come up here and draw a good number and start up front so we can save our stuff up front, that would mean a lot for us. So, and hopefully we can do that.
The Oxford 250, right, it's gone through some changes over the years with different cars and different series. How healthy is it right now in your mind?
I mean, back, 10 years ago, we used to have 100 cars, and Tom said we got 70. But, it is fading out a little bit, but, hey, so is NASCAR. And I think with what we got coming, 70 cars, that's a good field. So, hopefully everybody can have a good day.
And I feel the number might not be what it was at its peak, but I feel like that the list of guys that can actually make a case to win it is probably as big as it's ever been.
I agree with you. Back 10, 15 years ago, you probably had 5 guys that would win it. Now you got 20.
Yeah.
So it's definitely better. The competition's closer. Everybody's doing a great job.
All right. Good luck Sunday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you.
Thanks again to Mike for doing that. You probably noticed there's a lot of background noise on these, but hey, we get them while we can, and I think it kind of gives you a feel for. There was good attendance over there today, despite the fact it was pouring rain outside. We were inside, but it worked out. TB's press box, I kind of alluded to it already, but I want to go a little bit deeper into the Oxford 250. I'm not going to give you a prediction. Like I said, I don't really play that game, but I do want to talk about this race and how I feel it might play out. I think last year, as popular or as interesting, whichever side of the fence you fall on, as Kurt's win was, it was a strange Oxford 250. If you remember, there were a lot of caution flags in the first half of the race. It just seemed like there was you couldn't get into a rhythm in that race. It was really weird. It felt like 10 laps caution, 7 laps caution, 3 laps caution. It was really hard for guys to get going. I think what happened was all the leaders, it had to be 15 cars that, on that lead lap that were all probably the top 15. They all pitted right around the halfway mark. They all pitted together. And I think that set up really nicely for a team like Kurt's to win. And I think it sets up for a lot of those teams that didn't have a ton of experience in extra distance races. And I think that played in his hand because he was straight up with them, and he was fast enough to keep up with them, and he didn't have to worry about getting off sequence. He didn't have to worry about. Once that race got rolling again, and it got as it typically does, long, green flaggy, if you will, in the second half of that race, and that allowed Kurt, who's got a really good car, a really fast car, it was a brand new car in 2016, to really just start picking guys off. And he was really good in traffic, going to the outside, going 3 wide at times after a restart. So I feel like this year's race is probably going to look more like a traditional Oxford 250. I think there's 70 cars coming, is the number that Tom Mayberry gave out at the press conference today. He said there's 66 entries as of Wednesday morning. Based on what they know, they think there's 4 others out there at least that are coming. I said all along I think the number's going to be 72 to 74. Again, just kind of educated guess, haven't done this for way too long. But I think what you're going to see is I think qualifying's a little bit overrated. I think it's important in terms of starting spot, but there's not many races where the best cars are going home without even making the show. So I think we're going to see a really good field. I think we're going to see a really competitive field, but I think it's going to play out more like a traditional Oxford 250. We're going to have good race teams in that race, and we're not going to have a lot of field fillers who are just are kind of in over their head. So I think we're going to see that kind of play out. And I think if that happens, I think we're looking at teams like Cassius Clark, Johnny Clark, the Rose are certainly an example. Even Bubba Pollard, who's coming up from Georgia. I feel like we're going to see a race where these really, really good teams are going to go head to head. And so that's kind of how I see it playing out. I'm not willing to give you a winner, but I think we're going to see more of a traditional Oxford 250 with some off sequence pit strategy kind of stuff. We're going to see guys on their own game plan, sort of sizing each other up with 75 laps to go or so. And I think that's what we're headed for. And I hope we are. To me, those are the best kind of Oxford 250s. So that's where we are in terms of Oxford 250. But let's talk a little bit about the competition level, why it's gotten so high. Johnny Clark told me that he is going to a crate engine for this race. He ran it 2 weeks ago. And so I think we're going to see it it's going to be a crate engine field. I think the lone outlier might be Jay Cushman. And even Jay, he might have decided that he's going to throw one in. We'll find out when we get over there. But I think a good person to talk to in this case then is Travis Benjamin. And Travis has, talked a little bit about how the competition level has changed and how things have tightened up, and it makes it really hard to predict winners. And it's hard for guys to race against each other and know who they're racing against. So enough rambling. I want to remind you again, centralmaine.com/sports. And after I do that, I will tell you that here is Travis Benjamin of Morrill, Maine. He's a 2-time Oxford 250 winner.
This time of year has to feel special to you, considering what you've done in this race.
Oh yeah, it's exciting. Like we talked before, I never really expected to ever win this race. You just want to be a part of it, you know. How many races you get to go to where, at our level, where you have media day, you look outdoors, there's campers everywhere, Friday you have practice, and Friday night you hang out with everybody.
Yeah.
So it's just fun to be a part of, and it'd be fun to win our third.
Do you feel, when you came in after winning the back-to-back races, you're like Curtis, you had the target. Is it easier for you now a little bit? Do you feel like maybe we've overlooked you?
I feel this year people kind of have a little bit, but at one point we won 4 out of 5 here, so Curtis is feeling a little bit of pressure, but I took it as just enjoyed it,
Yeah.
It doesn't last long enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those deals where now we're not struggling, I wouldn't say, but I mean we finished second, third, and fifth here, so we're still running good. We're just missing. That's all it takes is just that little piece.
Yeah.
If you miss a little bit, somebody else catches up.
Yeah.
I
thought
they just said.
Yeah, I thought in the 150 here, if you had qualified better, you're probably racing with those guys. So, I mean, you passed so many cars that day.
Yeah, I mean that at the beginning of that day, after the heat race and the Consi, I knew he had a good car, but you draw last in 15 laps. It's hard to pass. We had to pass 7 or 8 cars. In 15 laps, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
So I was a little discouraged, but I thought we had a decent car. So, but once the race played out and everybody kind of wore out their stuff, and my car was still going. So that's the encouraging thing. The encouraging thing was at the end of that race, we're thinking we come in and put tires on. Now we're right there in the top 5 again. I think we could run with those guys. I thought we could run with third, fourth. Cassius he was good, and Curtis obviously was really good. So we got to be a little bit better, I think.
Yeah.
Still.
Yep.
Do
you? It hasn't been that long since you won it, but has the formula for winning the 250 changed, or is it still? I mean, it's relatively recent history. I just wonder if you guys have already, 5 years ago is forever ago.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
It feels that way for sure. The strategy I still think's the same, and you still got to make it halfway, and then you come in. That's kind of how we've always done it. When we got beat by the 27 car there, he come in late, which. So nothing's really changed. I don't think. You still got to get to that halfway, at least that halfway point, and be in contention. You got to be on the lead lap. You can't be down laps at that point. So nothing's really changed. I don't think. It's just the competition. I think the competition's gotten better. They've caught up.
Yeah. That's the other thing. That's the other thing I wanted to ask you about was we talk about there's 20 cars that can win or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
Has that changed even in 5 years? I feel like every year we say there's a lot of cars that can win, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just because it hasn't happened yet. I feel like there's a lot of cars that can win this year.
Yeah. I mean, the field's always been outstanding. For 45 years, it's always been really, really good. But with the rules package, kind of everybody's, with the crate motors now, when we won it, we had our big motors, and at that point you could use some horsepower, I think, but now the rules have changed quite a bit. And I think that's kind of what brought the whole field together. You look at timesheets, and from first to 20th is 10th of a second.
Yeah.
I think back. I remember when we brought our car. When I brought my own car here with a big power, I could turn a pretty good lap on new tires. And it looked like we were really, really good, but my car would just drive really,
Yeah.
So I do think the rules kind of changed, and the competition. I just think that everything's gotten tighter.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's always been 20 cars that can win the race. It's just, I think the margin of error is a little less.
Yeah.
I think.
All right.
thanks to Travis. He's got a chance this week to put his name on a very short list of 3-time Oxford 250 winners. And I think what I saw in the 150 from him, we talked about a little bit, was that he didn't qualify particularly well. He's still looking for some speed in that race car early in the day in terms of being able to click off a couple of blistering fast laps that get him some track position and get him qualified early. Because if he can start in that top 24, I think he's going to be right there at the end. I think he started 37th or something in that 150 a couple of weeks ago. And he, got to the top 5. And, he might have been the only car capable that day of running with Cassius and Curtis. So I think Travis is a guy that I don't think you want to overlook this weekend. I think he's got that. The car races really well. It's just a matter of if he can get it qualified where he needs to, so that he doesn't find himself battling track position. Oxford 250 being what it is, I think he'll be just fine. So that's it for Travis. So we're going to wrap up with Johnny Clark. He's the only guy we've had on this week that has not won the Oxford 250, but he likes where his team is at right now. It's been a weird season for him. It's been a weird couple of seasons for him. But again, the family business owned by his father, John, Clark Scrap Metals, is coming on as a title sponsor of the Oxford 250. And we talked to Johnny a little bit about that and also about the race itself and, why this race is so special to him. So here's Johnny Clark on this week's Loose Wheels.
When you were growing up over here and watching with your dad and everything that you've done, do you ever imagine you see your name like on the title sponsor on the Oxford 250?
No, Dad first brought it up like probably three summers ago, and I'm like, you're nuts. That was my first reaction, especially at a time when we were struggling. It seemed like the most, and let's worry about our home racing program before we're sponsoring tracks or races. But I get what it means to him. He just loves motorsports. He's such a huge fan. So I'm happy for him that he's able to put this together. He's in a position where he could. We've got 4 locations, growing the business enough to where it makes sense, and being that we're a racing family, and it just makes a lot of sense. So the timing was right.
With so much going on and this coming together so quickly, how much time have you had to focus on the race car this weekend?
It's all I've been doing this week is strictly on the race car. Yep. We've got both cars going to be ready and in the trailer. We put it together 3 weeks ago. So 3 weeks ago today. And I busted butt myself doing banners and trying to line everything up, to where I didn't have to be as involved as much this week. So we're excited about it. I was just talking with Mikey Mayberry, working out the last few details and just making sure that we're all on the same page and it works for everybody.
Yeah. So 40 wins and 6 championships. I mean, it puts you in a pretty select company, but you've never won this race. And we've talked about it, but how much does it bug you? Does it eat at you at all?
I think about it a lot, but at the same time, it's crazy. You know what I mean? It's just a different race. You know what I mean? We've put ourselves in position to win so many other 250s. A lot of 250s from Canada, 2 tracks in Canada. The 300s, 4 of them at Beach Ridge. The Oxford 250 is such a different bird. It really is. I feel like you need to have more luck on your side. Everything's just going to come together, I want it bad, but all you can do is do the work in the shop, prepare yourself to be competitive. You need a top 5 or 7 car, on race day to be able to put it together. Yeah. So, that's all we can hope for, is that we're prepared enough come Sunday morning, and we've given ourselves a shot.
Well, I was going to ask you, so many guys talk about speed, and I wonder how important it is to be fastest during the weekend. But maybe you need to have enough speed.
When you got a few select guys that seem to be a tenth and a half quicker, you want to be one of those guys. But it's you got to have the drivability. That's obvious. It's not any good if you're 2 2/10 faster than everyone else for 2 laps, but then after 10 laps, you're 3/10 slower. So you got to have good balance in the car and have that speed. Curtis Gary's a perfect example of that. He's hasn't been the fastest car on the stopwatch, but boy, the last 50 laps, he is the fastest car on the racetrack. He seems to just not fall off.
Right.
And you've got to have speed that just doesn't fall off.
Yeah. It's the obvious question I feel like I ask you every year, but are you in as good a spot now to win it as you've been, or do you feel like you're not? I mean, where do you kind of feel like you are relative to the last few years?
There's a lot of practice here, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I feel like that we've given ourselves a shot. We are coming into Friday prepared. Got a few things to try. Some last-minute Hail Marys, if you will. So we're just going to try to find a little bit more speed. But when we were here 2 Saturdays ago, or a week and a half ago, that was the best car we've had here since 2015. So I was running with the 59, the 7G, and we looked like we were going to a top 3 finish when the rear end broke on the final restart. So if like I said, we're just trying to be as prepared so when we get here we can run through a laundry list of stuff to just go through and see what we have.
All right. Thanks to Johnny. I think that would be a popular win. I think if you'd gone back a few years when he was so dominant in that series, if he'd won, people might have shrugged their shoulders or said, yeah, it figures. But I think he's kind of hit that point in his career where if he won, I think it would be a popular win. It's the one thing he hasn't done, and I think people would like to see it. So thanks to all our guests. Thanks to Curtis, Gary. Thanks to Mike Rowe. Thanks to Travis Benjamin. And thanks to Johnny Clark for coming on and doing this. It's really, again, looking forward to the weekend. The weather's supposed to be beautiful. Advanced ticket sales are up, so that means people are interested, and that means it's going to be a great event to cover. CentralMaine.com/sports. We're on Facebook at Central Maine Sports and also on Twitter at Central ME Sports. I'm on Twitter at TBarrettGWC. I would love to have you along. Make sure you download the podcast from iTunes and share it with all your friends so they can listen. I think it's a great primer. It's the only podcast talking auto racing in Central Maine. So it's got that going for it. That probably makes it the top-rated podcast in Central Maine Auto Racing. So I'm going to put that on my resume. I'm going to thank you all again for listening to Loose Wheels, and we will see you this weekend at the 45th Annual Clark Scrap Metals Oxford 250.